So I think I accidentally stopped liking video games for a while. Not on purpose, not as a statement, just like one day I opened my Switch, looking at my backlog, and my brain went, no, absolutely not. Then, just as I was about to give up hope, I remembered to just quit giving a shit. And suddenly I remembered what fun feels like. Anyway, I started this game called Emerald Sea Glass because, well, I wanted to. You're not my mom. And I've just been blown away by how refreshing of a twist simple changes to a game I know backwards and forwards can be. I find the graphics to be really charming, albeit I don't think I could say I prefer them over the original, but this game's presentation is just stunning. And it isn't just the graphics though. It's a small thing, but your lead Pokemon follows you in the overworld, and the encounters in the routes have been changed. It also seems from what I saw in Oldale Town that there may be added content as well. I'm only like 20 or 30 minutes into my playthrough, but I refuse to look up anything about it so I don't spoil the experience, so I don't know, but I'll make a video about it in 2030 when I finally beat this game. I really don't have the free time. They were worth it, they were worth it, they were worth it, they were worth it. But this hasn't been my first breath of fresh air this year. See, I started getting a little burned out on gaming after playing some long JRPGs back to back. I've got this thing called a Switch. You've probably never heard of it, but it gave me a brief glimpse of sanity when I first became a father. My wife and I would go to bed crazy early to make sure we could monitor our first daughter, and I just needed something to fill the hours between when I was in bed and when I was actually asleep. At the time, the Switch Lite was exactly that little fix. Unfortunately, my first choice was to play Tales of Vesperia, the Definitive Edition. Tales of Vesperia kind of holds a special place in my heart because it's a game that Extra Shoddy and I rented once from Hollywood Video in my hometown, and we played it co-op for a few hours. I guess it left enough of an impression on me that I felt I needed to come back someday and beat it. And boy howdy did I finally beat it. And I cannot say I had a good time with it. Granted, this was almost 3 years ago, so I don't really recall the details now, but the story just didn't do anything for me. And the amount of battles I had to endure with a very basic combat system just dragged on the game and led to this feeling that it could have been a great time, but ultimately just left me feeling like it was more padded than not. But since I had started the game, I needed to finish it. And that mentality honestly made it hard for me to play games. Knowing that if I wanted to play a game, the only one I could play was the one that I left half finished, made me just not want to pick up my Switch half of the evenings. I shouldn't have kept playing the game, but I felt compelled to. If for any reason just to finally say I beat it. Once I finished Tales of Vesperia, I set my sights on a game I'd always wanted to play but never got around to. Xenoblade Chronicles. And looky there, another definitive edition at that. And this turned into another experience of feeling compelled to finish a game I wasn't really that into. I really enjoyed it for the first, 10 or 15 hours, but at some point I just started losing interest. I will say it won me back in the last few hours, but there was just a 10 to 20 hour stretch that I just didn't care about this game. And I think every long combat encounter just compounded on the frustrations. I think the amount of combat in these two games, with how long an encounter, even a trivial one, takes, just made the games feel like they were constantly grinding to a halt. I recognize constant combat encounters happen all throughout the genre, but for some reason it really drove me up a wall with these two games. I also felt like the areas in Xenoblade were needlessly large. I know this is definitely a preference thing, and I recognize the world needs to feel large to play into the world building of exploring on these titans, but I felt no compulsion to explore the areas, so then with how long it would take to beeline to the next objective, and with how long the combat encounters would take, I couldn't help but feel the game had a lot of bloat. Again, totally subjective, and I'm sure I'm in the minority on that one, but don't come after me for that take. You're allowed to like it. I bring up these stories because these were games I picked up to play because I was supposed to like them. I knew about them for years and kept getting drawn to the idea of playing them. They're critically acclaimed and universally loved by fans of the genre. These are the same reasons I forced myself to finish these games. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. But honestly, this mentality drove me away from the hobby for a while. Outside of playing some Noita with Extra Shoddy, I didn't really play video games after those two for a bit. I just felt burned out. I switched to reading books for a good while, which, no shade to reading, but I felt a part of me was missing when I didn't have at least some game I was playing. Sometime this year, a game was released that just blew everyone away. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I saw video after video talking about how great this game was and how it redefined the genre. But not only that, it showed people that maybe modern gaming isn't actually dead. There's been this kind of trend over the last 5 or 10 years of people feeling like gaming isn't what it used to be, and Expedition 33 was 2025's example of why that may not actually be the case. And so, I decided to purchase it, physical on the PS5, which meant it was only going to take a few months. Am I reading this right? Months? Yeah, I guess they didn't expect people to buy that many copies. And I wanted to have a disc and play on my couch, which I was also fine with waiting. I had Final Fantasy X to play through on my Steam Deck. Another long, critically acclaimed, universally loved JRPG. I do plan on making some videos for both Expedition 33 and Final Fantasy X, so the TLDR for this decision is Final Fantasy X is a game I had started multiple times but never got very far in. I've always been enamored by the world building and inciting incident, and I kept hearing comparison of Expedition 33 to Final Fantasy X, so I finally committed to a full playthrough. And this experience was a major turning point, because even though I fell more in love with it as I played it, I definitely had some major frustrations that would make me rage quit. I'm looking at you, Seymour Flux! But with this game, I just took the approach of playing something else. I would die to a boss, and instead of rewatching a 10-minute cutscene, I'd just boot up Baba Is You, or pull out my 3DS and solve a couple Picross 3D or Pushmo puzzles. I just played something else. And then I eventually beat Final Fantasy X. And maybe I cried. You don't know me. Once that was completed, I had my copy of Expedition 33 just itching to get started. And so I did what any sensible man would do. Purchase a copy of Ace Combat 7 on PS5 and alternate between that and the Battlefield 6 beta. I played what sounded fun in the moment, and had a blast doing it. Then, one night, when the time was right, I just decided to commit to playing Expedition 33. And I blasted through it in a week. Funnily enough, I actually finished it like 2 days before my second daughter was born, which I found very convenient because my wife was saying something about not being allowed to bring my PS5 to the hospital or something like that. I couldn't really hear her over the Renoir theme. I really enjoyed Expedition 33, although I also had a fair number of misgivings towards the game. But I happily played through it because I allowed myself to just play what sounded right at the time rather than feeling I needed to play it to tell other people I played it, or join in the fun while it was happening in real time. This definitely isn't like some profound realization or anything, but gaming is supposed to at the very least be a fun activity, if not also a relaxing hobby. It shouldn't feel like a chore, and just like any content, if you're not feeling what you're consuming, you don't have to continue with it. Or you can put it on hold and come back to it later. For some reason, I forgot that, and at some point had to stumble back to that. Now I'm just gleefully bouncing between my first playthrough of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney and Pokemon Emerald Sea Glass while occasionally chipping away at a Final Fantasy VII playthrough. With how many old games there are that I missed out on, and apparently a world of fan games I never knew of, there really isn't an excuse to not have good games to play. So there's two things that I want everyone watching this to kind of ruminate with after this video's done. The first is that gaming is supposed to be fun. Play games that are fun. If you're not having fun with a certain game, walk away from it.
If it's not fun, why bother?
That can be for 5 minutes, days, months, years, or just flat out never again. Don't make yourself miserable if the cost is not being able to enjoy the hobby at a future point. The second takeaway is that, regardless of your opinions on the state of the gaming industry, there really isn't a better time than now to play games. The backlog of good games only grows, it never shrinks, and that's now including hobbyists, adding their own twist to classics we all loved along with just playing the old classics you missed out on. Hell, grab one of those budget retro handheld emulators and just load it with some classics and fan games like I have and just go to town. Hey, this is Chip editing after the fact. Apparently my Steam key for Kingdoms of the Dump that I backed on Kickstarter 5 years ago was just emailed out, so I might just be jumping onto that and seeing where that takes me. So to all you out there who stumbled on this video, I wish you well and hope you have many more adventures. Just go play games again. Thanks for watching to the end. If you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. It's a one-time fee of $0 and it helps grow the community here. Leave a comment about whatever you're currently playing and any recommendations for fan games or something niche you love. Like the video if you enjoyed it, ignore all buttons if you didn't. And until next time, keep it tuned in.